So we will have Ralf Völlinger, he's Senior Vice President and General Manager of Fanuc Europe. Then we also have Enrico Iversen, he's the CEO of OnRobot since 1918. Next, I would like to welcome Adrien Brouillard, he's the Global Head of General Industry and Customer Services at Stäubli since last year. And last but not least, I would like to welcome Thomas Burger. Thomas Burger is Managing Partner of SBS-Feintechnik. But before we dive into the panel, I would like to introduce Marina Bill, our president. I'm happy to have here on stage to present the latest figures.
We are talking about preliminary figures of the robotics markets for 2022. The final figures will be out on 26th of September. And of course, things might change, but we would like to share with you what we can see so far. But let's look upon the robotic market now for the last decade. And what we can see is that, yes, we had a growth in 2022, even though it seems right now to be a rather moderate growth, but we had the big jump to over 500,000 robots in 2021, and that is actually what we can see now, a small increase with about 2%. And if we think about any other industry, it's not that many industry that can show this kind of growth, 3.3 times in just 10 years. And in those 10 years, we had 2 years of COVID. It's a rather remarkable experience, I must say. If we break it down a little bit more into the industries, since a couple of years, the electronics is the largest, and it still is what we can see now. But the growth was rather moderate, only about plus 1% on the electronics. Automotive continues to be the second largest, but there was a strong growth, and much stronger than what we've seen the last year, with a growth up to 14%. So a really strong automotive year. Metals and machinery went back a little bit, and food also, plastics went up a bit. But the big two remains, but they are now more or less head to head. I don't want to imply there is a competition here, but they start to be very similar now with a strong growth of automotive. If you look upon it from a regional point of view, of course, Asia, Australia remains with over 380,000. And here it is where we have most uncertainties in the figures. It looks like a slight increase, but again, let's see what that will end in the end. Europe had a very strong year, plus 3%, and that led to an all-time high with 84,000 robots. So a really strong year. And then the Americas also had a strong year with a double-digit growth of 12%. But of course, not the enormous growth figures we saw last year. But then don't forget we had the big jump due to the years after COVID. Looking at the 10 largest countries, China continues what we also saw last year, is more than half of the market, and more than every second robot installed is in China. Followed then by Japan, US, Korea, and Germany on the 5th place. If you look upon it only from the European point of view, Germany is the largest market, and it's a factor 10. So 10 robots in China to 1 in Germany, more or less precisely. Followed by Italy, France, Spain, and Poland, that are now the 5 largest European markets. We'll just look upon Europe as a total. So a growth of 3% up to 84, which is clearly the strongest year since ever. So really a new record here. If you looked upon the other, we had a strong automotive growth globally. That is not the same in Europe. Here we had that automotive went back 3%, so opposite the global trend. And metals and machinery, though, on the other hand, grow 12%, and that had a negative trend globally. So these two markets are, in European point of view, just opposite the rest of the world. Also looked upon Europe only with EU. So if we take only the EU states, then the 27 of them, then we have as a double strong growth. So this growth is not 3%, but 6%. So the EU countries has clearly outgrown the rest of Europe in the last year. What conclusion can we take so far? Well, the boom that we saw last year is now decelerating a bit. It's on a more moderate level. The revenues in Europe are still growing, and this is based on the IFR quarterly statistics. But the order intake in Q1 is now slightly down based on the statistics we have. So we have a bit of a flattening out from the extreme year 1 year ago. And therefore, all this comparable, I think it's good that we look upon them 1 year, but also take a 10-year perspective to look upon them in a bigger picture. So the outlook, I think this is no news for any of you, but of course there is a lot of uncertainties, not only in our industry, in the whole world at the moment. We have the central bank policies, Chinese economy is softer. Political tension is, of course, something that we all experience every day. But for an outlook for Germany and the whole Europe, I mean, the backlog in Germany in mechanical engineering continue on a really, really high level. And we know there is a tight labor market. It is hard to get people to do a lot of tasks today. So the general fundamentals on how this market will continue to grow in Europe stays very, very positive. So with that, I'm happy to hand over to the panelists and an interesting discussion, and thank you all very much.
If you look at those figures we just seen, it looks like the growth in Europe is much more moderate than in other parts of the world, like in the Americas and in Asia. I would like to know from you, what are the reasons for this?
I don't think it's geopolitical that influences the situation in Europe a lot worse than in the US. I think we have a cultural issue where we in Europe are a lot more risk adverse. We don't like taking chances. We take a lot longer time to adapt and accept new technologies, and that put us behind. We don't have the same competitive mindset. So I don't really think this is a political issue. This is something that is in our European minds and something that we have to work with and change if we want to move forward.
I think one thing is we have to make differences between Germany and the rest of Europe. I think in Germany we have the regulatory framework that makes us hard to get in front of new technologies. On the other hand, we are short on employees, so it's hard to find specialists to implement such new technologies. That makes us, for us, especially a problem to get ahead with that interesting technology.
If you look at other countries in Europe, the permission processes, energy costs are much simpler. Even promotions from the governments are there. Germany is not doing that yet, at least not in a larger scale. And these are frameworks that are missing in Germany. So we the same thing. But on the main question, we see another trend too. If you look, of course, everybody's talking about EV. If you look at China, it goes around the globe a little bit, US now, and now it's coming to Europe. So what we will see, I think, in the next years, we will not have enough integrators in Europe to do all that work. And it was mentioned from Marina that the engineering backlog in Germany is 1 year. So if you look at that, it's clear we do not have enough integrators to do all the work.
And I think we did not mention the inflation, but European countries are also the countries suffering the most from the inflation. If we compare ourselves for Chinese or Japanese countries, so it has a huge impact, I guess, on the development of the markets itself.
Do you already see some signs that production is coming back to Europe?
Yes, we see it. I think with the COVID situation, we clearly see that people are more sensitive to have the production closer than from the users. So it started, I think, with the pharmaceutical industries, with the vaccine medicine production, where people try to minimize the sanitary risk and better manage it by having local production. We have also, on top of the pandemic, different trends. I think the second one is also the current geopolitical situation, which has also a huge impact on the semiconductor industries, where we see more and more semicon fab to become with new projects in Europe as well. And the climate change also is playing a massive impact. We see a new regulation coming from the government with incentive for the industry to further invest in Europe. This is true as well in the US. And we see that we have incentive for the people to invest on renewable energy. So we come with new projects in the PV industry. For instance, we see it in Italy. And we see also more and more projects for gigafactories, which is one of the hot points we have to address today. And clearly, what is the main challenge for the industry to localize in Europe is potentially the cost of labor. And clearly here the automation system can play a big role to maintain a good competitiveness of the industry, even if producing in Europe. The second big advantage I see is also I would say the employee in Europe does not have the same criteria when looking for a job. We were speaking about the labor shortage. So for sure, all the non-added value tasks, we will have more difficulty in Europe to find people to do it manually, and for sure, automation will be also a key solution for the industries.
And I fully agree, it depends on the country and the industry where we really see reshoring. Medical, pharmaceutical was mentioned. There's some other industries that are doing that. And I think we will see a lot of automation in areas where we have not seen it yet. So a lot of new applications are being developed. I mean, many of us go to a supermarket in the morning and buy bread or in Germany pretzels and sandwiches and stuff. This stuff people do not want to do anymore manually. So we will see automation coming closer to us in the daily life. But these applications also need to be developed. So, and of course, very important point is the trade skillsmen, we don't have that anymore, too many. So we need to educate the people ourselves with schools, with universities, with Chamber of Commerces, whatever. So this is a big task for, I think, the entire automation industry. But on the other side, I think we also all agree that the automation industry is booming and will be booming for the next years.
I think I see this maybe a little bit different. I agree that there is a lot of talking about reshoring or nearshoring to Europe. I also agree that we need to do it. It needs to happen. But I don't really see it, at least not in the figures that I have access to. I don't really see it happening yet. So it's a lot of talk. It's a lot of, okay, we need to do this, but there's actually very little action at this time.
Do you see it more as a reshoring to Germany? You've been quite critical about Germany before.
We have to difference because if we are thinking about medical industry, there we can see that it's coming back. To Germany, if we are looking about chip industry, it's coming back to Germany, but the government has to make it attractive that these people are coming back. That is the right way. As a medium-sized company, I am against that. I'm always telling the political people we need attractive framework on infrastructure and all that stuff, and let the work do the companies. Don't start to make the market a little bit with extra money, no more as competitive as it has to be. And then I see a trend to Eastern Europe. It's always going more east. Not back to Germany. And at the third point for me is we have to also to look on the American continent. I think if things are coming back from Asia, it not has to be necessarily in Europe or Germany. It can also be on the American continent.
We already talked about the staff shortage. So what do you think should and could be done to overcome this challenge? And in particular, what's the robotics industry doing to overcome this issue?
For me, the point is not more are they resilient. I think they will be forced to go in this direction. Labor shortage is a point. If you do everything manual, for sure it will have a huge impact on the capacity. I think further to the COVID situation, we had one phenomenon in the US regarding the ground resignation. We have some food customers there which are really suffering to increase or to even maintain their capacity because they are looking for people doing, one more time, difficult tasks in a difficult working environment. Sometimes it's really cold and so on. So they do not find at all people. So now they are in a hurry to find automated solution to keep going with the production capacity and make sure that they can deliver the customers. So I think more and more we will see it happening also in the Europe, and for sure robotics will play a big role. So we have first to adapt our product, because the more we will go, the more the diversity of people using our robot will be large. So it means that we have to concept to design our robot in this way. One of the big steps, and I think we have a big player here also, is how to program the robot. So we are all as robot manufacturing, but also as third-party company, looking for additional and new way to program to make this step of the robot integration much more democratical in this. The education has been covered as well. I think the skills is key. And we have to work together with the education in the different country. First, to change I think the perception of the young people in regards to the industry, because in some countries the image is not good. It's not really true, I guess, in Germany, but I'm coming from France, and there the industry image is not that good, so we have to change that as well. And we have also to come with new innovative solution to better support our customer using digital tools, predictive maintenance, augmented realities, which are now new ways to properly support the customers.
Yeah, just I think on the demographic development, I think that for society as a whole is a challenge. For us as an industry, it's a huge positive driver. But we need to take that driver, and I think what we need to do within the industry is we need to take the responsibility of making automation a lot easier accessible for all the end users. That will solve the issues we have with the demographic development, but it will also solve the issues that were mentioned earlier today about not having enough experts to install the robots and do all the application programming. So we need to take as an industry the responsibility of making things easier for the end users.
I cannot agree more, and we as an industry have to look at the younger generation now. How are they used to work with electronics? They don't want to program code anymore. They want to swipe.
Yeah.
Literally. So we have to look at these ways. I mean, it was already mentioned, easy teaching, hand guidance for robots to make it much easier. So this is a task for the industry, of course. But again, education. We do world skills, Euro skills, Olympics to really attract younger people from universities, from schools. And I think we have to go much further, start even younger to make automation attractive to them, to make it interesting for them, to make it more playful, that they can, because this is the next generation who will do that, who will program robots, who will maintain robots. So it's a big task, but I think it's also a big chance to do that.
First, I think what we are doing, we are bringing the robotics starting in kindergarten. We are going with robots to the kindergarten to show and play with young kids what robotics is. Then we are going to school every 3 months to show the young people how attractive that technology is. Then third step should be that for apprenticeship, the robotics has to be one part of that technology, and at the end we need a more attractive framework. The regulations, especially in Germany, are no more, on my opinion, on the level that we can go with lower costs on one hand, and on the other hand with high security, to make it attractive also for medium-sized volumes or low volumes to use that robotics. And I think these are the things we have to do, that the young people will grow up with robotics. Then it's easier for them to use it, they like it, they love it, and so that makes that profession attractive.
Maybe one sentence, especially geared to Germany. Germany, we've seen, is the largest market, but also the most difficult. If you try to work with a Chamber of Commerce, who is doing the exams for the apprentices, there is not one organization. It's every local organization you have to talk to discuss that, and that makes it very, very difficult. Makes it takes very long. So if this can be changed, especially in Germany, it would make things a lot easier and a lot better for the German market anyway. And we have a lot of integrators located in Germany. They work globally, of course, and they're looking for people and cannot find people. So this is really a framework that has to be looked at, in my opinion.
We already talked about easy to use. That could help. Kind of, you need less skills to program a robot. We also see a lot of platforms coming up where you have a can buy a robot, integrate certain components, and kind of have an app store-like environment where you can put everything together without needing really programming skills. We have these low or no-code robotic solutions that are introduced on the market. How and over what period of time do you think this could help or ease the situation?
Well, I think it can happen very fast, and I think it has to happen very fast. We see a number of different platforms being developed at this time. Some platforms going with very easy programming, no code, low code, and some platforms taking that direction towards fully automated application programming. But I think both types of platforms will develop very fast over the coming years, because they create a lot of value. They create a lot of value for the robot manufacturers. They create a lot of value for the system integrators, and they create a lot of value for the end users. So with these platforms, there will be or is value creation across all interesting parties, and I think this will drive quite fast growth in this direction.
I agree, and we should not only focus on the robot, because we have gripping technology with vision systems, and the integration of these kind of systems, they're getting much easier because those systems make the robot smart and make the robot work in a faster way. Maybe the computing power has been increased over the last years. For the robot, software has been getting easier. Simulation software is available, but all this, I think, all manufacturers work on that to make We do not only talk about hand guidance. Yes, that's a simple task, but integrating robots much easier, having ready software platforms, having camera systems that are easy to integrate. They work they're connected and they work. I think these are the things we need to do to make it a lot easier for integration.
Yeah, I would like to build on that. I think with the easy of use, one of the challenges also is to reach the complexity which is expected within the equipment. We have for some operations the easy to use concept, which is quite easy to make it and to materialize. Now the challenge is how to make this easy to use concept also applicable for really complex equipment, where the performance, the throughput is also really expected. And this is the direction we have now to go. I think we have for 4 or 5 years now see a lot of new concept for that, and we have to build on those new coming concepts. Also we have the artificial intelligence. For example, we were speaking about a vision system. This is typically a tricky operation and tricky application to set up. With artificial intelligence, we see more and more application which can be handled in a more easy way than it was done in the past.
Yeah, I think just adding one small thing, talking about these platforms and the way we think and work in the future. We need to stop thinking about robots, and we need to start thinking about applications, because the robots, no matter how good they are, they don't create any value. And the end-of-arm tools, no matter how good they are, they don't create any value. But when you put them together and you put them on the right platform, you create a lot of value. So we really need to start thinking about applications, not just talking about it, by doing it.
I think it's the right way what all the persons before me were argumenting. But I will make a little bit of difference. One thing is to set up a robotic and the system. The other thing is to keep it running on 3 shifts, 7 days. So often I have the experts who are building such a unit. But on the other hand, our problem is often that on 3 shifts, the people with a lower level are not specialized enough to solve some problems. So there should be a software to make it for them easier, handable, that they can do some smaller things on the unit and set something on the practice I have to solve because the high qualified people are not in that quantity available.
Do cloud-based systems that kind of ease the maintenance of such systems, or do you already have some products or developments in the pipeline?
So yes, we do. I think this is also a big trend in the robotics field and more on a broader scope automation field. So for sure the IoT will help. Now the big question for this is how we can be cloud-orientated versus edge, and what about the data sharing? This is, I think, the most challenge we face. The product itself is one part, but how the customer are willing to send some information and some data outside, even if we want to only collect the system data and not the application and the process data. But I think there is still a fear on that. We were speaking about the conservative approach of the European customer. I think we are clearly here with all the IT security and stuff like that. So this is one of the barriers, but still we can compensate those barriers by having some other edge solution to bring additional and added value services for the people to better monitor the production and also to make easier in case of troubleshooting requirement or things like that.
I cannot agree more. The technology is there, but also the hesitation is there. But as you said, sharing data is not so popular because they're unsecure and do not know what happens with the data. Yet we, as on the robot side, we're not interested in the manufacturing data. That's not our interest. We look at the machine data. And other countries, like the US, is much more open to use cloud systems to do that. So there is some education we have to do on our side, but also the industry has to open a little bit. There's a lot of technology available, but it can be used in a much wider range still.
Yeah.
Just on the data sharing, I think we need to probably split that up. At least my observations is that because the technology is there, we don't have anything in the pipeline. We have it on the market. But coming to data sharing, people at my age, they don't like sharing data. We are not used to that. Young people, they don't care. They share everything on their smartphones anyway, so it doesn't matter. They don't think about sharing data. SMEs, they don't care much about sharing data. They don't think about it. Big corporates, they think a lot about it and they have a lot of policies around it. So we can either try to convince all us old people running corporates to go this direction, or we can bet on the future and go to the young people operating the SMEs, and then we will actually see a market that will grow very, very fast.
Is there other technology developments that will be a further driver for the technology apart from platforms, no-code robotics? You already mentioned AI. Do we see any other big trends in the robotics industry?
Maybe just highlight one trend with the integration of peripherals. So I fully agree, a robot is nothing without all the peripheral equipment we have around. So for this, we have system integrator partners to do this job, and also we have to make things easier for those partners. And by having more collaboration between the peripheral manufacturer and the robot manufacturers, I think this is a big trend that where we move from a robot a solution manufacturer to a full solution direction. So I think this is a big trend currently.
And I think especially in the gripping industry over the last years, a lot of things were developed. So you see applications that have not been automated before are now being automated because of the gripping industry. So it's a hand-in-hand actually going to develop applications, really.
We look more into sustainability and we look at the total life cycle costs of our machinery. So how much progress has been made in this respect?
So for me, we already cover this part with the climate change and the new regulation in the different countries. We see some reshoring. So I fully agree also with what has been said. Currently, we see a lot of projects popping up It will take time because also of the traditional approach. The pace is a bit different in Europe than what we can see, for example, in China. As soon as the project is decided, we see concrete investment and concrete stuff to happen directly forward this. In Europe, the pace is a bit slower, but still, I strongly believe, and we strongly believe, that new opportunities will come with renewable energy, with gigafactories, with reshoring of production directly in Europe, and then requiring automation system. On our hand, we have also a role to play in the sustainabilities. Clearly, starting by the design of the robot itself, to make sure that the raw material we use on the robot are eco-friendly. So on top of the cost, quality, and time target we fixed during the design project of a new robot, we have also to consider eco-friendly targets. We want also to make sure that the robot can last for 20, 30 years, which is a completely different trend than what we have seen in the 4 or 5 years ago with, for more or less, the cobots, where people say, yeah, you can use it, and when you have an issue, potentially remove it and replace it. I think this is not a sustainable approach, and we are more on a long-run approach with the robot. And to ensure that, for sure, you have to make sure that the design is compatible with, but also that you have all the maintenance organization behind, ensuring spare part delivery, spare part availability, but also skills of your maintenance staff to be properly trained and remain trained on the older generation robots. So I think this is really the long run, which is a key topic.
My favorite subject, sustainability, because it has very many aspects, as we've heard. And I think our task, and I think Fanuc is known, we design products for long term. Really 20, 30-year usage. And I think that's our task, what we have to do, that you, as you said, not throw away a cobot after 1 year because something's broken on it. That's not sustainable. Also, the production side is, of course, sustainable. Our task is to have products in the market that run for 20, 30 years, not only over one life cycle, maybe 2 life cycles, that they are still supported, they're updatable and so forth. This is something which we have clearly to do. And I think you mentioned total cost of ownership, and that's something we still have to teach the industry. Still, if you look at larger OEMs or other industries, yes, they listen to TCO, but do they really make the decision based on TCO? Not so much yet. So I think we could be a lot more competitive in Europe, actually, if also the investing industry is looking at that as a real total cost of ownership over 10, 15 years. They could be a lot more sustainable, actually, if their decision basis would be a different one.
I fully agree with that. What we see also in practical when we are discussing project with customers is the TCO is not fully considered. Also, they are still in a mindset to say this product line will run for 6 or 7 years, and then we will disassemble everything and restart from scratch. In practical, it does not happen like this. The line remains for more than 7 years. So they calibrate everything during the project to last 6 or 7 years, but finally, sometimes the line is producing for 10 or even 15 years. So that's the first part. And the second part as well is the refurbishment. I think when we have a good concept and good design and robust design of robots, we can have a second life. So to upgrade everything and then go for a new line, but using the same robot. And here it's even better in matter of total cost of ownership for the customers.
Is it linked to the customer industry using the robots?
I think it's linked to the life cycle of their own product. So they think about the life cycle of the products they would like to produce with this project, but maybe they are a bit afraid to consider what could be the next life cycle and the next product line. And to be honest, it brings complexity because potentially you do not need exactly the same size of robot, you do not see the same payload and stuff like that. So for the customer to manage itself, it brings more complexity. So maybe we have also a play to role as a robot manufacturer in this game.
And I think we see a bit of difference. SMEs or wholly owned companies by a person, they think different often. They decide different. But if you look at publicly listed companies, they often have a different focus. on that. And I agree, it's also based on the product that is manufactured, that they look at the life cycle of a product and then they want to have the depreciation of the entire line over that time. Yet the robot can be used for another life cycle. This is nowadays not a problem at all to use robots 20, 30 years without major repairs. So it's a change in what we have, I think, to teach the industry more and more and educate the industry.
So my experience in the past is we have to split it in mechanical parts and in electronical parts. If I'm looking if a robot has a problem, the mechanical parts I can replace, that's available. But if I have an older model on the electronical side, often that version is no more available. So I think how long would you get spare parts for older robotics? That's one thing. That was in the past not always for more than 10 years available. That's something for the future for these gentlemen. And the other thing is, how can we do upgrades if the electronical side is no more state of the art? How can I put on upgrades on my 10 years old robotic?
We do that. I mean, I cannot speak for the others, but as long as a Fanuc product is in use, it is supported. You can buy spare parts, be it mechanical or electronic parts. We even, just as an anecdote, we even still repair tape readers for machine tools because the machines are still in use and the customer likes it. They are 40, 50 years old. So it can be done. Yeah, of course it takes some effort, but this is our task. For us, customer satisfaction is the highest good. So we support as long as a product is in use, be it 30 years or 40 years, no matter.
And on my side, it's not really nice, but I would challenge also the customer side. How do they make the decision when they make the investment, and how do they consider the fact that the suppliers they choose are capable to ensure a spare part delivery and guarantee the spare part availability over the years? I think we mentioned it, how to consider the total cost of ownership, how to consider the sustainability on top of the price and cost competitiveness. And I think this is something which is still the highest priority when making the decision on the customer side, and this is where it could move.
I think there's nothing more to add to this. Thank you very much for the panelists. I would like to thank the audience for your patience and your interesting questions. Looking forward to see you in 2 years' time from now.